Moving on, let's talk about the next issue I had with the map. Okay, so this has a nice idea behind it. We want this to be like this little circle thing. And zeroallies did a good job in noticing that if you rotate one slider by 120 degrees, you'll get that symmetry, because you have three objects. There's 360 degrees in a circle. 360 divided by 3 is 120. So that's why you get the 120 number. If you were to say do a square, you would divide 360 by 4 and get 90. If you were to go, so like let's say you wanted to make a pentagonal structure. So this is kind of an aside. But if you rotate it by 360 divided by 5, which is 72, and you just keep doing this, and now you have the little circle. So if we wanted to, we can continue the idea. So that's a long way of saying 362. 360 divided by 5 is 72. Anyway, let's go back to what we had before. Oh no! See, this is where the editor messes up. This was not supposed to be like this. This guy, one of these guys is supposed to be over here. Okay, so that's why we rotate things by 120 degrees, but we also need to place these in a way, in the right way. Like I'm guessing this was just placed manually, trying to get it by looks. But even by looks, like we can improve it a little bit like this. But we want to be very whatever. It's hard to get it just by the looks. We want to be pretty formulaic about it. So how do you go about doing it? Let's start like this. We will. So if you do Control G twice, you get the endpoints, which is going to be helpful later. So that's why I did the Control G twice, so that I can find what endpoints is. So I'm going to rotate this by some amount of numbers until I get this to be symmetrical across the x-axis, y-axis, whatever it's called. So this number here is 196, and this number here is 196. So this eventually is nice. We just want this to be on 256, which is where the axis is. I'll move it over by 1. And now I have a completely horizontal symmetry, which is good, because now when I do it by 120, what's eventually going to happen? Darn it! I can't use grid snap, which is, I can't do a lot of things. Now when I do by 120, what's going to happen is that this is eventually going to go somewhere here. And if I take this and I rotate it by 120 the other way, or I could use 240, right? This is eventually going to be so that it's horizontal, like horizontal symmetry, using the Control H command. So that's the eventual goal. And what that does is that this will guarantee that this is going to be symmetrical, and it will actually guarantee that if you look at this like line here, if you look at this line here that bisects this slider, you're going to find that these will be symmetrical, and the same thing will be true if, for this one. So that way you have symmetry along this line, and that line, and then it looks really nice. So that's the eventual goal, but we still need to figure out where these place so that they come out nicely. And the first thing we want to do is figure out what DS we're using, which is actually kind of important because the DS we're using is going to be dependent on the curvature of the slider. For instance, let's put this all really small. Like let's put this here. Let's put this like really small. Like this doesn't actually form a circle. This forms like this isn't continuous. There's like an angle between this kind of flow, which is not what we want to do. We want to have it so that it's like that if we imagine this circle, it is actually a circle and not just some kind of certain weird polygon thing. So how do you find that? Well, one thing you could do is take a copy of this and move this like here. So this will continue the circle flow, and then you just set it up so that your curvature is a lot nicer. So for instance, we could do something like this. Now that looks kind of nice, but we need to make sure that why didn't I use like a slider like this? This might actually be the more optimal one, depending on what distance we want to use. So let's figure out what distance we want to use. And by that I mean let's copy paste this. And by that I mean actually this isn't the best distance to use because it's the curvature isn't nice. Like right up here you can kind of see that the curvature isn't as great. So we probably need to reduce the size of this, which is kind of what I'm trying to say. Maybe a little bit more. Oh, so you do this to me. Okay, that looks good enough. So if we do this, then this should be exactly perfect. So we notice that the distance between this is basically the same. It's 1.6 and 1.6. So that's kind of how we know we did it mostly right. And now that looks a little bit better. And then, of course, this wasn't the exact shape that we were going for, but we can rotate it to whatever our heart's desire is to get kind of the exact pattern that Zero Ally started with, just in a more nicer way. If we wanted to increase the distance, on the one hand, we could just increase the distance, you know, just use a bigger circle from here, and it probably won't be that bad just because the curvature isn't like so dramatically off that this will still look nice. But if you wanted to be super specific, you could probably change the curvature of this kind of slider and redo, you know, all that stuff. Okay, yeah, and so that's the, oh darn, I did Control Z so much that when I redo with Control Y, it won't redo nicely. So unfortunately, I lost that pattern, but it's not that bad. In fact, we can just do what we did before. Yeah, so that hopefully gives you an idea how to make these patterns, this circular type of pattern, a little nicer. Of course, Zero Allies didn't use this exact type of code. We use something like this. Something like that, I don't know. I can't remember. But that's essentially how you get these patterns to work. Using the hotkeys, you can get things to be pretty formulaic and structured, which is pretty nice. So, hope that helps. Hope you learned something, and good luck!